All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Saratoga podcast. Robin is taking the week off, but I'm here with my co-host Dan DiFederici. And Dan, there's some breaking news, if I understand right. There was a deceased individual found in the Vanderbilt housing terrace, I believe. I will read the police statement right now. Hold on one moment for me. So essentially, the Saratoga Springs Department is currently investigating a suspicious death. A suspicious death, I imagine that's a key word there, that occurred at the residence of Vanderbilt Terrace yesterday, February 6th. There is no threat to the public, and a person of interest has been located and is currently in custody. Dan, you are a ex-police officer. What do you take from this?
Um, yeah, it's scant information, but you can start piecing things together there, it seems, right? Suspicious death, person in custody. In fact, they label that person a person of interest, but once they're in custody, they become a defendant or an arrestee or something more than a person of interest. So it seems like we're going to find out more, and this doesn't look good from a criminal justice perspective. This was clearly does not seem like a natural death, and maybe as far as a homicide, right?
Yeah, again, for the layman and the way you broke it down, yeah, it seems like again a suspicious death and somebody in custody. Looks like somebody prematurely took somebody's life, but as the situation develops, we'll be sure to update people. Dan, I'm sure you do a great job of covering this stuff on the Saratoga Report. So I would recommend after this podcast tuning in there to follow what's going on with this late breaking homicide.
Yeah,
But besides
okay.
that, moving
We
on.
don't know it's a homicide, but you start piecing that together. It seems it. And just real quick, the only thing I could really get from the police department was they may have more information this afternoon. So if there's a press conference or another news release, we could. Could even happen while we're going live here. We'll certainly do our best on Saratoga Report on the What's Going On Saratoga Facebook page. We'll get it out there.
All right, moving on. There was a city council meeting last night. You watched it, Dan. We'll start where we always start with public comment. Anything stuck out with you with public comment?
Because public comment is always noteworthy, right? It starts at the beginning, but there's always something. And yes, there was times. First of all, it was mostly respectful, vehement at times, but not out of hand. And I give credit to Mayor Safford. It was the first time, he's only been in a month and a half now, not even. And there were people that were going over their time, and he was firm about it. He was respectful, but firm. I should note, everybody that came up there, he noted the first words out of his mouth were, you are welcome here. And again, he means it when he says it. You don't feel empty when he says something like that. And I believe he means it. And but there were there were some standard comments, dance flurry coming, etc. But then there was some strong comments and some people going over. And again, he played this loud music. I think you saw that part of it where if they went over.
Yeah, he has essentially I would say playoff music, but really is like the standard Apple phone alarm.
Okay.
And it works. It kind of it's a very clear message that your time is. And he would say, he joked about it. He's like, boy, that's annoying. But that's the point of playoff music, right? You kind of.
And if the person chose to keep talking, they had to deal with that noise, as well as Mayor Safford saying a number of times, your time is up, or something equivalent. So they really didn't have the floor, whereas in the past, they held the floor and they kept it to themselves. Now, there will be times that Mayor Safford is challenged at a deeper level than this, I suspect, with people going over and refusing to yield the mic. But I thought he did an excellent job. So, yeah, there was, again, the word I came up with was vehemence. Someone was speaking about what maybe the proposed new homeless shelter out on Outer Lake Avenue, pretty much at the intersection of Weibel, across from that, next to the new Stewarts, because there's a brand new Stewarts going up, and it seems like they're almost done. And there's some in that community that feel strongly that that is an inappropriate location because it is far from downtown, hard to get to. And the speaker last night must have used the word corpses and roadkill a number of times, saying it's too dangerous to get to. And again, she was very, very outspoken about it, very vehement about it, and angry. And I think you caught that. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, yeah, exactly. One of the speakers, Diogenes, who we've talked about before on this podcast, she speaks at most city council meetings.
So what was her name? I missed.
Boy, this is where we missed Robin. Her name is Diogenes, but that's not her given name. Her given name is something else. And she lives out by Saratoga Lake at a trailer park. That's a whole other story.
I am familiar with that story. Yes.
Yeah, this trailer park was bought. Essentially, the new owner wants to convert it into self-storage or marina, I think, something along those lines. And he's trying to get rid of all the residents. And that's a whole different story. But this lady is very, very shows up for a lot of city council meetings, and she's essentially said with it's a matter of as a landlord, I could say you just can't go throw people out in the street, and rightfully so. I agree with that. But again, if you own the property, you can convert that property to, essentially legally whatever you like. And so she's saying she's joining the ranks of the homeless. What I thought was a little interesting, she said it took her 2 hours to walk into the city council meeting. I mean, I hate to be this guy, but there's other choices between the home she's in now and homelessness, right? If you're going to spend 2 hours walking, spend 2 hours getting a job so you can, and again, it sounds kind of blunt and cold, but there's a little bit of a discrepancy there with the just because this developer wants to develop this land doesn't mean she's going to necessarily be homeless. But that was one comment. Again, it goes back to this homelessness task force that decided essentially, and Tom Ruin was the chair, and he made the point that that they decided there needs to be a low barrier shelter, which I don't know that I necessarily agree with. And B, they picked what they thought was the best location, which was east of the Northway on Lake Ave. So like you said, way out by that Storts on Weibel Ave. What are your thoughts on putting a low barrier homeless shelter there, Dan?
Well, putting it there is a lot better than the original proposed location on top of Spa Catholic before, right? So at least if you get to the point that, yes, first of all, let's credit Tom Ruin and the others that served on the task force. And I know there's some, there's actually something we'll talk about shortly about some of the people on it, but they served to their best of their ability. I credit Tom Ruin for leading that. It was a great choice. So, I'm thankful there's people in the community that will serve in that capacity. And that location, notwithstanding the concerns that were said last night, and I think they're legitimate concerns, even if you have a bus route, even if you have rides going there, some people are going to maybe choose to walk at midnight, which could be dangerous. So it's less than perfect. But, perfect here is the enemy of the good, right? It couldn't be downtown. It couldn't be at the location that they proposed downtown at the former senior center. Ultimately, that was a decision that was made. I think it was a prudent decision. In fact, it was the only decision in my book. So we have to serve the homeless somewhere. Now, what roles that location is between, low barrier, permanent shelter, and code blue, or combinations of all those things, get to in another day. But we have to have something better than what we have now. That location seems to make a lot of sense. I guess they're technically our neighbors, but one group of neighbors is on the other side of the Northway, as you mentioned. The other one is Stewart's, and then a few houses beyond Stewart's, or I think there's a dentist office across the street at the corner of Weibel. This committee did their work, and they ultimately came up with that location. If not there, where?
Yeah. It's true. I think a big fallacy in the serving the homelessness debate is the fact that it has to be in a urban center. I think the especially a low barrier shelter, the mass of people are experience, or show antisocial behaviors. So they're not like we see with the Code Blue shelter downtown and the Rise on Adelphi Street, their shelter. The residents there, the people who are staying there, are not necessarily, they're not walking into town for jobs. They're not going to restaurants. They're antisocial. They spend a lot of time at the shelters, and so the idea of it not having it downtown is a good one. The other problem I have is that homeless, and this is something again that people just dismiss, but it deserves talking to. Homelessness is a spot problem. So by building home, if you build it, will they come? So if we build a 50-bed, low barrier shelter, will 50 people come and fill up that shelter? And then we put another 50 beds on, and will 50 more people come? At what point is this a issue that Saratoga? And Sam Brewer, somebody who made a public comment yesterday at the city council meeting, made the comment that what you're doing is spending all this money to exasperate. You're essentially allowing people to remain homeless. You're not helping them transition out of homelessness by building a homelessness shelter. So,
and he referenced Section 8 housing, if you recall. He was a fan of Section 8 housing. So he wasn't saying ignore the issue. He just had a very different viewpoint of how to address the issue.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he did. So I think I think you have a lot of well-meaning people, but they're very tunnel vision in their solutions, and that their solutions may not. You're taking on a national problem with a local municipality with a $60 million budget. It's not something that, as Saratoga residents, we can solve. And the problem is it might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we build, the more they come. So I like the idea. I'd like to see it further out, maybe by the mall. Again, if you have a store or a shop or a bus line, I mean, taking a bus to get to, if they are residents that want to integrate back into work, taking a bus to get to the job site, to get to work, is such a small step to real life. But it's a necessary step, and it's not something that if there are residents out there that want to start to transition back into a productive livelihood, I don't think asking them to take a bus to get to a job site to get to work is something that's astronomical. Or I know I had a guy working for me who was experienced homelessness from Ballston Spa, from a shelter there. And when he was good, he figured out ways to take the bus route, or he would ride a bike to get him from Ballston Spa to show up on the job site. When he was off, when he was bad, when he was having problems, I could have gotten him a hotel room next to the job site. He wouldn't have showed up on time, right? Mm-hmm. So the barrier was not his physical location compared to the job site. It was mentally where he was at. And the other issue, again, we heard a speaker talk about they were returning to their house, to their apartment building on Broadway, and in their vestibule, they were assaulted. And that was confirmed by the Commissioner of Public Safety, Tim Colt, who had happened. He also talked about how Seneca Restaurant had a disturbance with a homeless person who brandished a knife and caused some mayhem there. So I think focusing the homeless population, I like the idea. It's not in town, not in the urban center. I actually like to see it a little farther away, and also in conjunction with the county and other municipalities, because as a city, we can build all these things. And what do we do when they filled up? We keep building them.
Yeah, we do have a comment, Adam. I'm going to post it in a second here. And I want to get back to what you talked about the speaker last night. The 2 inches. So Bill S., keep in mind, this is just the beginning. For years, the homeless in Saratoga has been largely ignored. Now it's being addressed. I think patience is key right now. Bill, thank you for that very measured comment. Adam, I want to get back to what you said. So yes, there was a speaker last night, and he told two different stories, both apparently about homeless people. He was assaulted apparently late at night in the vestibule of his apartment building by a homeless person. I think that's been confirmed. And then he segued into, and by the way, there was a homeless person at Seneca Restaurant who damaged the bathroom. And now the knife part of it, Adam, I doing some follow-up phone calls this morning. There has been no arrest for any sort of menacing or weapon. So it seemed like there was some sort of knife there, but I don't know if he went as far as brandishing it because there's no arrest for menacing or attempted assault or anything like that. So I don't know where the knife played. So
right, and you would assume, Dan, real quick, as a police officer, if I was menacing and I showed a knife, that's a crime, correct?
If you're showing the knife in a threatening manner to raise a reasonable fear in the person that you're showing to, or many other weapons, that would be menacing. But there has been no arrest. That subject was arrested, but not for anything weapon related, including menacing. So it could be pending. I don't know, but I think the facts are not fully fleshed out on that portion of the criminal justice charges. But he was charged for some level of criminal mischief and maybe one other non-weapons charge. So we may want to dial it back a little bit until we know a little more about it. But that person,
like Bill said, we'll give it a little patience with it.
I know I heard the name, but I don't have it handy right now. But that person spoke. So again, Bill, thank you for the comment. I'm going to see if I can take that down.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I am closely associated with the business downtown, and it's located close to a couple shelters right now. And we had an incident Sunday night where we had a homeless man come in and act in you want to use the right words because they were certainly intimidating and threatening without threatening one of our retail sales agents, and had her essentially cornered, and she felt extremely scared. But she had her phone on her, but she couldn't, without. That's why police have codes, right? 1020, because you can't really say, this crazy guy is in front of me right now. I'm scared for my life. Please send help. So she was texting, and then she called the sheriff's department. She was texting somebody who was called the Saratoga Police 911, and the Saratoga Police essentially said, "We're out on other calls right now. We can't help you." So this young lady dialed 911 and was kind of talking to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher was trying to get her to describe what was going on, and she was trying to give code to, there is a threatening man in front of me. And the dispatcher, I don't know if the dispatcher wasn't picking up on what she was saying, but the dispatcher, and normally when this happens, we've had people accidentally dial 911 before, and the police, even if they'll call back and you'll say everything's fine, but they'll still show up. There was zero follow-up by the sheriff because if I'm correct, the 911 calls from Saratoga still go to the sheriff's office. Well, it turns out it was Sunday night, and there was a bomb threat at the Casino Racino. So that's supposed to be all the units there. But, in the meantime, you have these homeless shelters downtown, and these incidents continue to happen. And again, serving a large portion, my belief for how to deal with, low income housing and the homeless population is disperse it throughout the community. Don't concentrate it. And that's what we've kind of done right now in South Broadway between the Shelters of Saratoga building and the Code Blue, is that it's the homelessness population is concentrated very close to our city core. And boy, as much as you want to say they just want a home, they just want a warm place to sleep, it's true. There still is a risk to the community when you put facilities like that in the middle.
Let me acknowledge that. And I'm always, well, not always, but I like to think I'm down the middle quite often, which means everyone hates me or hates my opinion. But in this case, I never want to overhype or overplay anything that could be a stereotype or something about the homeless. At the same time, I'll be damned if I'm going to let people say nothing to see here. It's all stereotype. There's real concerns here in our city. This poor clerk that you're talking about, this employee, oh my God, that sounds terrifying. And then to finally get the police and say, we can't come or something, or we're going to be not as quick as we normally are. That had to be horrible. This gentleman got assaulted. That was confirmed, going back to the speaker last night at city council. Something crazy happened at Seneca restaurant. That's just within a few days. So again, let's not overhype it. We still have to, we have both a moral duty and a legal duty, at least at the county level, right, to address homelessness issues. And I hope we do. And for now, Adam, to answer your earlier question, because I'm not that knowledgeable about it, although I did listen to the podcast, with Dwayne Vaughn and the Mitsons for Shelters of Saratoga. I'm going to post that where people can find that. It was about an hour long about the history of homelessness in Saratoga, or at least the recent history, past 30 years or so, and it was really enlightening. But until I know more, I'm going to defer to Tom Ruin and those that did the work, and they apparently did a lot of work, and they came up with a proposal out on Outer Lake Avenue. And right now, I thank them for their work, and I guess that's largely where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, so let's get back to this homelessness task force too. Tom Ruin has been a staple of this community for a long time, and it goes back to his father's days, and they did a lot to bring this community to what it is today. With that being said, the task force, again, Sam Brewer had a very interesting comment that, that one of the chair people of one of the members of the Saratoga task force, appointed by the Commissioner of Finance, Ms. Shangvi, she doesn't stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. She's actually a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, which are a kind of an anti-Western capitalistic values group with a lot of radical ideas. And I think a lot of our boards, especially having an all Democrat kind of with some far left members, city council, there's a lot of activists and not problem solvers on these boards. And Sam Brewer did bring up a good point. I mean, you look into this lady, again, she's an active member of the DSA, which I have a lot of issues with. I think it's a group fraught with issues. And if people who actively participate in that group, I think have some real flaws in their way of critically thinking about issues like this. So I do like the fact that Mayor Kim did appoint somebody like Tom Ruin, who's certainly far from ever being labeled an activist. But again, these groups we have in Saratoga, a lot of them are just, or a lot of these committees are just packed with people with very far left viewpoints, and you see it in a lot of the recommendations things that come out of it.
Yeah, and so we can clarify, Sam Brewer is just a citizen, right? And he doesn't have an official position. He spoke at the public assessment.
You're right. And we talk about Sam Brewer, like Diogenes, who, what gives him a little bit of credit, at least I think why we feel comfortable talking about him, is because they are at most city council meetings. They speak at many of them. There are people who you got to give it to, who are active in our community, whether it be in ways we agree with or not. They certainly are active. So
yeah, and he spoke well. He was very pointed, both literally and figuratively, in his statements about the task force member you talked about, and as well as a Commissioner Sungvi. And Mayor Safford then told him to essentially back off at addressing people directly, or talking about people directly. But you know what, Mr. Mayor? I think he has a free speech right to do that, especially for they're both public officials, right? Just because she doesn't get paid on the task force, she's still a public official, and he's speaking his mind and criticizing them. He has the right to do that, I believe. And
that's one thing the city council for years has tried to say, try to speak to the city council as wholes, not as a whole, not at a certain city, certain member of the city council. But I agree with you. I think as public servants, you have a right to go up there during your public comment and address something that they're doing. I agree with you.
Yeah, and because once you get to limiting content, once you get to judging, to stopping or allowing based on the content, I approve of the content, I don't approve of the content. That's where First Amendment rights that's where the city can get themselves into some trouble. So I think so that folks, I think most of you know this because you're watching this podcast, so you're somewhat savvy in what's available online. But these city council meetings, if you can make it downtown, they are available on the city website live. They're available archived. Usually it takes, in the past, it took like a day and a half. But Adam, you told me it was available this morning, archived on the city website. Look TV, both the Look TV media resource website, as well as the TV station itself, which I want to say, probably going to get this wrong, but it might be 63 on Spectrum cable, and it's over the air. You can get it with just an antenna. out of Glens Falls. So there's many ways to watch and listen. I sometimes just listen to it. I don't watch it live. And this is important stuff, and they're rarely dull, right, Adam?
That's right. And I'll give you a pro tip here. If you watch it the next day, and for instance, by I think 9:30 this morning, last night's city council meeting was up. If you watch it, if you don't watch it live, if you watch it the next day, you can put it on 1 point. You can speed up the playback. So I watch it on 1.5. So I'm watching it in 3/4 of the time you are, Dan. It's kind of a nice way to quickly. Everybody sounds a lot more emotional, so your mind, you got to kind of figure them speaking a little slower when they're talking. But it was interesting, and
I can barely keep up as it is, Adam, at regular speed. Well, you guys have seen it with me. I'm texting. I'm the annoying guy at the movie. Like, what happened? Why did he kill the butler? I mean, that's what happens at a city council meeting. Sometimes things happen so fast, names are dropped, and you lose it, and you want to hit rewind, but you really can't until the next day. So it's even if I listen to it the next day, I have to play it at the normal speed. But that is good to know, especially if there is a dull point, and there are dull points certainly. But it was a lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah.
In fact, let's talk about a couple of those things. Not as vehement as some of the things we talked about now, but we have a changed an amended city ordinance regarding leaves and grass, and to a lot of homeowners, this is going to be important, right?
Yeah. I saw this on Saratoga Report, Dan. So I want you, you reported on it. Tell us exactly what this is, because you're right, changes how we leave our crap on the front yard there.
Yes, the Commissioner Jason Golub introduced a motion to change the city code regarding bagged leaves and grass and items of the type. He had a few different changes on it, but the salient change that to a homeowner that rakes leaves or has grass clippings is you can no longer just pile it at the curb loosely. You can't just put a pile of leaves like you used to. You can't just put a pile of grass like you used to. It has to be either bagged in a plastic bag or in a container or a receptacle. And I wasn't on my game. I would have had that to post it here, but it's redlined and a little bit confusing. But that is the main difference. It passed unanimously. I didn't see a date of effect, so I assume it's effect immediately. Not that it's relevant in the middle of February here, but it will be relevant in a month or two, right? Because even in the spring, people are bringing things out. Now, the logs and the pieces of trees and so forth, I don't think anything changed on that. You can still put those loose, but as always, they have to be cut to 4-foot lengths. But I didn't get a clarification on that. But the leaves and the grass are the key there.
Yeah, and as a government, is a bureaucracy. I like to consider myself a small business entrepreneur guy. This seems just like a great non-bureaucratic way to just speed up the efficiency of our public works, guys. Right? Because if there's leaves everywhere, they got to get that big tractor with the the claw on the front and finish raking them up, and it just seems like this is going to be much more efficient. Where they come by, they throw the bags in the truck, and they go. And again, ultimately, the more efficient that city government runs, the more savings there are to the taxpayer. So, Commissioner Golub, great idea,
and efficient and effective, because Commissioner Golub pointed out that because of this, we can now extend the paving season. Because apparently the same people that were paving and were the same ones doing this, so they can't do two things at once. So you're right. That probably, is it an inconvenience that I like? I didn't pile it up loosely too often. I did more often bag it than not. But was it convenient? Yeah. So I'll live with it.
Yeah. It also too, like sometimes I'll put it in bags and then my neighbor won't, and you'll be like, damn it, that's going to end up in my yard.
Yeah, a good wind wind makes a nice pile suddenly everywhere. Exactly. And also some good news. Oh, sorry, you were going somewhere.
I think I was going to the same place you were. The good news with well, go. Why don't you say
some upbeat news regarding a beloved?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the music hall. Anthony Skip Scirocco, who was our commissioner of public works for years, I believe he started out a dog catcher. They're going to name the music hall after him. Correct, Dan?
Correct, which is totally appropriate for two reasons. One, I don't know if I knew this all along. He was a lifelong musician, so the music hall that apropos. But also, he was the one that was in charge of refurbishing the music hall after I think it was a lightning strike and a fire that took like 2 years at least to to finally open back up and fix, right?
Yeah.
So
He was integral in that part. So the ceremony is going to happen on the 29th of February, which was his birthday, and it's good to see politics be put aside and the city kind of come together, and whether you're Democrat, Republican, somebody who serves this city for that long, I think deserves a little immortality in the city. So I'm happy that's happening, and good for him and his family.
Yeah, me too. And I didn't know him well, but I did interact with him a few times, and he certainly was a masterful politician and public service official. The public works as it does now, but it was certainly in his several terms was really active and effective. I don't recall complaints. I never had a complaint. I would call about an issue, and they'd be right on it. And he was just a wonderful human being, from what I understand.
Yeah. All right. So a couple controversies going on. One is, have you followed the lunch controversy with the?
I don't know how I missed it. If it's out there, I missed it until you brought it up to me an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Again, I think you have the.
Let me know when you want me to hit it up now.
Yeah, see if you get the graphic up. So, what had happened essentially is that I think it was 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, the mayor or the governor of New York kind of tasked all municipalities and police forces to reimagine policing. So Saratoga came up with this 50-point task, this 50-point plan on for our police department and what they should be doing to become a better police department. So this 50-point plan was then it's been slow rolling out. And I got to say, the group that came up with this 50-point plan, again, it was a task force of, I would say, many activists. And so some of these points weren't legal to do, were impossible to do. Like, for instance, I think one of it was to keep, state law enforcement out of the city or something along those lines, which a municipality can't. We can't tell New York State Police they can't come in. That's just not how the government works. But it was slow rolling out, and for multiple reasons. And so the city, and this is a big issue I have. The city spent $75,000 on consultants to come in to take inventory of where we're at on this police reform task force 50-point plan. The first issue I have with that is that a lot of this, if you look, the Republicans nationally have a problem with the big lie, and that big lie is the election was stolen, and that nothing points to say that's fact. Nothing gives that any truth except the de facto leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, spewing off on it. Well, locally we have the big lie of the murder of Darrell Mount, and why Darrell Mount, his death was tragic and too soon. A lot of the far left in the city perpetuated this myth that the Saratoga police were racist and were part of the death of Darrell Mount. And
they use the word murder quite often.
What's that?
They use the word murder quite often, which was
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. And because of that, the reaction of this city, spending 75. You have to understand, our taxes have consistently gone up the last 2 years. Our property taxes, and we're spending $75,000 on a consultant group from Virginia to come in and take inventory of a 50-point plan that's fraught with some issues to begin with. Not only that, one of the commissioners, Jason, there's a whole, our friend John Kaufman in Saratoga Politics did a big piece on this about how this RFP was written and the relationship of one of the current commissioners with these consultants out of Virginia. Jason Golub had worked for this company or had a relationship with this company, and we're paying them $75,000 to come in, and they come in and they had lunch with Lex Figueroa, who is one of these characters who probably all of our viewers know who he is. He's one who's kind of led this charge that Saratoga is a racist city, and that our police force murdered Darrell Mount. And so they have lunch with them, and this lunch involves, this lunch involves raw oysters, bottled Saratoga water, steaks, cocktails. Now they didn't put in for the cocktail, they didn't see reimbursement for the cocktails on this, but this lunch seemed so over the top. And the fact is, there's a government per diem for lunch, right? The government comes in and says, the federal government says, this is what a lunch should cost you in Saratoga Springs, New York. And that is $19.60. That's a fair market, that's a fair price to pay to get lunch in this city. If you look, this lunch was $176. Now you back away the drinks and everything, it might have been $120, but that's $60 a person for lunch to talk about the Saratoga, this big lie that we're a racist city with a racist police force. And it just it blows your mind. And it got a lot of traction on social media. This because if you look at this receipt, this receipt is.
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Where was this out there? I just, I'm searching deep and wide all the time. And until you brought it to my attention, I didn't see anything on this.
So this receipt was submitted by the Beacon Group for reimbursement.
No, I understand that. I mean, but was it on what's going on in Saratoga?
Moving Saratoga Forward was the first people who.
Okay. Okay.
So Moving Saratoga, who again we have our issues with, but it's not to say that when they still sometimes get things early and report facts.
They do. To their credit, they find, and I've been keeping a distance from them, but they do find things that long before anyone else finds them, or they will post things that maybe some other entities are unwilling to post. They often go way too far. That's why I keep my distance from them. They're sometimes terrible. Are terrible. I'll stay with that. Sorry, keep going, Adam.
Yeah. So anyway, I think this pendulum. You had a lot of different things nationally going on 3 or 4 years ago, again, with the horrendous murder of George Floyd and the torture of the hands of police officers. You had, a kind of a Looney Tune president doing really kind of crazy. It just was, you had COVID. I mean, it just was, but the pendulum in this city swung so far left that we're spending $75,000 again, essentially for based on this big lie that Daryl Mount was murdered by our police officers. It was, and so now we're okay with going and invest in spending $75,000 for oysters and steaks. It's just, if you're doing these things and it's within the city purview and you're not raising taxes is one thing, but we continue to spend money, raise taxes. This has got to stop somewhere. This insanity has to stop.
We have a comment on this. If I can interrupt you, Adam, let me remove that and add the comment from Dina Drink Henke. It was linked on the agenda. So I'm not sure what she means at this particular receipt or this
receipt. Yeah.
Okay.
This seat was part of a broader bill. This was part of a broader bill where they billed us again. They billed the city $15,000 to take inventory of our 50-point plan, and $15,000 to take inventory of our 50-point plan. We don't have this. Saratoga is we have a small budget. We're not a giant municipality that has a large tax base. These expenditures add up, and ultimately what you see continued, in the government, the term is raising revenues, right? That's what the politician will tell you. We need to raise well, the only way a government raises revenues is by taking your money. Right? They're just finding creative ways. That's all. It's taking your money. So when they raise revenue now, they charge for parking, which again, I'm not against, but I don't want my parking to be paying for oysters and steaks for lunch for anybody. Doesn't matter who you are, right? Some humility. Stick within the government GSA per diem.
Dina, by the way, thank you for that comment and helping us out or helping me out. Believe it or not, Adam, I see it a little differently than you. Not completely at all. But when I was president of the Troopers PPA, I had an expense account, and I wined and dined a lot of people, including our own members. At the same, and I'm sure this is in their contract with the city that reasonable and necessary expenses We could question whether they were reasonable at the most expensive restaurant in town or one of the most, and we could question whether they're necessary. But it doesn't rise to the level of unseemly in my part. Imprudent to go to that restaurant when there's several others. I would agree. But I'm not as fired up maybe as you are. A bit of a shrug, like, oh, come on, folks, you had to do that. You had to go there, and like you said, oysters and so do I understand right? They paid for their own drinks, but then the food was reimbursed by the city. Did I catch that?
They
correct?
paid for their own drinks, but the food was reimbursed in the city. And again, Dan, I love dissent. I wish we argued more about stuff because I think that's what makes it interesting. But when you have a government per diem, you have this is not me saying what it is. This is not you saying what it is. This is the federal government saying $19.60 is the appropriate amount you can pay for lunch in Saratoga. And you're more than double that to talk about something that again, I don't, this taking inventory of our 50-point plan that all kind of stemmed out of this big lie in Saratoga. For me, it just shows gross. This is not their money. It's not the commissioner's money. It's our money. And it shows a great neglect in how they choose to spend our money.
Yeah. Again, I don't disagree with you. I'm dialed back in that the optics aren't good here. And
Yeah.
we need, if we're going to hire vendors, they need to make some, okay, this is a beautiful, expensive place that we're going to go on the city dime. Can you go to Cantina? Can you find somewhere middle of the road?
I had a $12 turkey sandwich for lunch yesterday at Compton's. It was delicious.
No, they could do a little better. I will use my tax dollars to get them somewhere better than Compton's. Actually, I love Compton's, but it's noisy in there. It's not a good place to do business. I'm not appalled. I'm a little shrug, like, oh, come on, guys. Come on, think better. Look at the optics. But I'm not.
All right, well, let's talk about another controversy. Let's see if this appalls you.
Yes, okay, this one might.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you familiar with the Spring Street cat, Kane?
From what I've read, nothing inside, I guess. Yes, and it's a bad story, right? I am. If the allegations are true and the person has not been convicted, I am appalled.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So on Spring Street, which is a this is where I live. It was a neighborhood cat. And we have Spring Street Deli close by, and this neighborhood cat, and like any loose, whenever you're letting your animal run loose through the neighborhood, you're going to have people who love that animal and people who are annoyed by that animal, right? It's just the nature of the beast, pardon the pun, but
true.
And so this cat Kane was going into Spring Street Deli, and it was an outdoor cat, and it was going to Spring Street Deli. So finally, the owner took the cat and drove the cat and left him at the animal shelter.
Allegedly, right? It's because he's not.
No. This is not allegedly. This is on video.
Okay.
Now the animal shelter was. Here's the problem. I think it was a Friday after 5 or whatever. It was after 5 on a very cold night, and the animal shelter was closed, and he still left the cat there. It's on video, and he actually
stick to allegedly anyway until he gets convicted.
Right. Let's cover our bases. Yeah, exactly. Right. Until it's proven, it's all allegedly. So this cat has now not been found. This has been weeks, this was a family pet that people are devastated at. And real quick, just because I've been it's been very active on my Facebook group. What's going on in Saratoga? It's been very active in the neighborhood. It is undefendable what this guy did, right? And you'll hear the argument like this, and this is an outdoor cat. He just brought it outdoors to the animal shelter. It's still animal cruelty, and this guy was charged as such. But there's a little issue I have, and this is hard to say. It's hard to just defend any of this with completely taking away a man's livelihood. And the reason I'm a little bit partial to this is that I know this man's family, but I grew up with his wife, and she's just a sweet lady. And not only that, but and I don't know, nobody's ever brought this up, and I don't know, but there is a family member who needs a lot of medical help, and this is all I'll say. And you hear a lot about what's going on in Israel and collective punishment, and you have Hamas fighters, but their women and children are paying the price for it in Israel. Well, that's what I kind of feel like might be happening with this. And so it's horrible what happened to this cat. I pray this cat turns up and all gets put to rest. But but I don't know that we should shut Spring Street Deli down. I think it's still a valuable asset. This guy's going to pay a big price, and he is paying a price, and rightfully so. But it's one of these. The ramifications are large about taking away a man's livelihood.
Yeah, I hate to see that. Hey, because I used to live right near Spring Street Deli myself, and B, it's a good business, and C, there's employees there that rely on paychecks from there as well that he's going to have to lay off if business remains down or they close ultimately. So that concerns me. At the same time, people do have the right to assert their feelings with their wallets, and that's what happened here. If he's if everything is true, because again I only know this everything second and third hand, he made a horrible mistake, and he is gonna pay for that. When you're a business owner or a politician, or in my case when I was a state trooper, you're in the public eye, and when you do things, if you think it's unfair or not, the reality is there's a much bigger microscope on you than the guy that works in a warehouse 20 miles away. And I'm not saying too bad, so sad, because what you're telling me, everything, especially about anything with his family, that's terrible. I feel awful. I wish it would go away. The issue, meaning, I hope it'd be great if they found the cat.
Yeah, Kane, come home.
Yeah,
the neighborhood missed you, Kane.
I feel terrible for everybody involved. Certainly the cat and the cat's family is kind of where I'm at. Again, if you hate me for bringing it down the middle, that's my honest thing. I'm not trying to be down the middle. That's where, in my old age, 20 years ago, I would have been pounding my fist on one side or the other. I guess I've got some wisdom in my gray hairs.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got, Dan.
Should
we move to cheers and jeers? You got anything else?
Yeah, Robin usually is. We miss Robin. She's got all the cheers and jeers.
The cheers and jeers.
And let me see. Oh, wait a minute. Look at Robin. She did that. Look at that. I'm a genius.
You don't have
a technological genius. I have a cheer. I have two cheers. One, the first cheer to you, Adam Israel, and your Facebook page, What's Going On Saratoga, because I saw this morning it reached 50,000 members. Applause. Wow. That is significant. I knew you were closing in on it, and I didn't know when you'd hit it. I knew you were hundreds away because you were at 49 point something. That is, What's Going On Saratoga. I find, because I search things for obviously Saratoga News, for Saratoga Report, and that's one of the key sites I go to. And I found out about the bomb threat long before the standard media outlets found it. That may not be but I found out about serious things happening in this community, whether it's breaking news or an ongoing story. So your site, I applaud it. My second one is Chowderfest is this weekend. And a double cheer for Chowderfest, and that the weather is looking stellar. It might even be too warm to enjoy chowder, but I'll take that problem any day, because I've done, and you've done, some miserable, frigid Chowderfest before. So I'll take 49 degrees for Chowderfest. I hope last night at the council meeting, Commissioner Dylan Moran said the estimate is 30,000 people, and he predicted it's going to go north of that. So that would be great. Obviously, we don't want gridlock in the city. We don't want so many problems, but it's generally gets a little crazier as it approaches 4:00, right? There's some people that have had plenty of drinks, but Chowderfest is great. So I cheer you, Adam. I cheer What's Going On Saratoga, and I'm cheering Chowderfest starts at 11 a.m. And it's not just downtown, folks. Let me give some love to the outlying area. There's a map on the Chowderfest website. I posted on Saratoga Report this morning of the places both downtown as well as on the outskirts, going as far as Ballston Spa and Malta, and maybe even Round Lake. That have it going on.
Yeah, that's just like real quick on your two cheers. One, it was funny. I was talking. Our family owns the inn in Saratoga, and I was talking to the general manager there, and she says we do really well when the weather's awful. Because it's a place to go and park. So but we still have parking there. We're gonna have live music. I'll just plug the family business for a second. Come check out the inn at Saratoga. As far as What's Going On in Saratoga, thank you. It's been something. But what really kind of gives me motivation to do it is the moderators, and Dan, you helped me bring in some really great moderators who help weed out the stuff that shouldn't be there. That's all I'll say. But what really makes it worthwhile is when you see a family in need of help and posting it on there and receiving help from members of the community. Today there was a young, I believe it was a young gentleman who's moving into becoming a preacher and advertising church services. And if we can bring people closer to a call and closer to God, I think things like that really make it, or watching local businesses promote themselves and find new customers. It brings me great joy. So thank you to our 50,000 followers. As far as my cheers and jeers, first, my cheer, and this is kind of a funny one, is to somebody who I enjoy. He enjoy watching his show. He's known as the notorious JEW, Dr. Dreidel. He's head of the Jutang clan. Ben Shapiro, who had the #1 rap song in the world for like a week. Do you know who he is?
No, I'm old, Adam.
Ben Shapiro he's a conservative commentator, and he graduated from Harvard. Smart guy, young guy, very conservative. So he's very conservative, but he's very smart too. He doesn't push conspiracies. He's not a crazy right wing, but he's Jewish, wears a yarmulke, and he did a rap song with a guy named Tom McDonald, who's another conservative, very conservative rapper, self-promotion, his own label, and they rose to #1 in the charts and the #1 worldwide. So, and for him, it was kind of a joke, and he kind of liked that it was a joke, and so he called himself Dr. Dreidel, and so I just that's where I ran with that. So anyway, cheers to Ben Shapiro for being the #1 rapper in the world for a solid week. And then my jeers go to the police. And usually I'm very, I'm very pro police here. I appreciate them and what they do and how they put their lives on the line. But again, we had a young lady who was in trouble, who was doing her best to signal the police, and they couldn't be. We talked about this. They could appeal. I feel like even though there's a bomb threat at the casino, they still have a community they have to police. They can peel somebody off. Luckily, this ended with it didn't end tragically, but I also think that that they should have followed. They get a 911 call where it's clearly there's somebody's in duress. You got to follow up on it. You just can't. It just blows my mind they didn't. So
did they ever respond? Did they ever respond to it?
They never responded.
That is a concern, right? That's a valid concern.
It is. So for our law enforcement community, I'm still very appreciative of all you guys do, but look at what happened here and try to change it so in the future it doesn't happen again. But besides that, we miss Robin today. We'll most likely be back in a week. Then the following week is break, so I don't know what will be here, but we'll keep people posted on our Facebook page.
Excellent. Adam, thanks. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for the 2 commenters. Adam, you want to close us out? You just did, but you have a sign off.
Stay charming, Saratoga.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Dan.